Hello and welcome to beautiful Barber Motorsports Park for our second edition of MotoAmerica Race Line, where we help you play to win and have a chance to be part of the MotoAmerica action along with your favorite rider. I'm Jason Pridmore, and joining me on the show once again is MotoAmerica fan and betting expert Ben Wilson. Good morning, Ben.
Jason, I'm so pumped to be back with you. We had a lot of chalk race one at Daytona, but I mean, look, almost a month has passed since then. This is the de facto season opener for our Superbike, Super Sport classifications. We might get a little weather. We got a really good track. I think there could be a lot of excitement here as far as some longer shots that are live this weekend, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And with the winter testing and the things, with new teams, new bikes, new crew chiefs going different places, we have our first session out on the track rolling as we do our show right now, Ben, for Superbike. So I think that we should just get right into it. Talk about what Superbike is thinking about this year and some of the odds that we have for the weekend here at Barber.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start on the futures front for Superbike. So these are your full season-long betting. They'll be a little bit different than the individual race that we'll talk about in a second, but Cameron Beaubier, who was awesome here last year, is your favorite for not only the race but also the full season. He's plus 115 as we take a look at the futures odds. Got off to a really good start, won 3 of his first 5 races, Jason. Finished second, though, to the defending champ, Josh Herrin. And I don't know about you, I'm a little surprised. Like, is there some disrespect here to Herrin, who's over 4-1 right now? The third favorite, all he did was go out and become the first ever back-to-back-to-back Daytona 200 champion. Looked super comfortable on his bike, and yet he's not even the favorite. What do you make of that?
Well, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. I think Josh Herrin, he'll feel that. He'll feed off of this number that you see here on our screen. When you look at the 2 guys ahead of him, they're multiple Superbike champions, so they're getting the credit that they deserve. But this guy has been on a tear. He's on a bike that he loves. He's on a team that he loves. The number 2 will be a number 1 this year in our MotoAmerica Championship. So when you look at him at plus 413, this is a guy, Ben, that doesn't crash. He finishes races. He always figures out a way to get points. The respect that Beaubier is getting is because ultimately there's a number of people in the paddock that feel that Cameron is the best and fastest rider here. However, he's been struggling finishing races the last couple years, been a little bit accident prone, whether it's been his fault or not, and injury prone on top of it. If he has a healthy season, Beaubier will be difficult. Now, the one guy I will say, Ben, on that shot that we saw that you might look at is Bobby Fong at, I think it was plus 1,600, somewhere in that number. For the championship, Bobby Fong, another guy that will finish races. He's finally got his shot on a factory superbike. He won races last year for that wrench team on that R1, so he makes the step up to the factory team. When you look at him at plus 1,600, this is a guy, again, that knows how to win championships, as he's won here before. He might be a good guy for your futures bet as well.
And Fong, yeah, 15-1, a guy who actually led the Superbike standings about halfway through last year, ended up finishing 3rd a season ago. There's a look at our futures odds. Jake Gagne, who was 7th last year at plus 368. Herrin, who, to your point, Jason, finished in the points 19 out of the 20 races. Finished every single one of those as well. And then you have Sean Dillon Kelly, who was 4th last year. He is 4th on the odds at plus 567. And I love that you mentioned Bobby Fong. He may or may not be on my card in some format for the race this weekend. As we get into our specific race odds, so we get a completely different track, Jason, than at Daytona. 16 turns, just under 2.5 miles. I just have a feeling like we should have a better chance of variance between the weather, the fact that this is now the new season opener. Used to be Atlanta. Barber was race 2. Now we start here at Barber. I mean, what do you make of the dynamics at play now that we do have this as the season opener and a very, very unique track as a result?
Yeah, I can't remember opening the season ever before at Barber. We've always started down in Atlanta. And, you know, this race used to be in September where it was routinely very, very hot. Here this weekend, we're going to have milder conditions. Obviously, we got a lot of wind today on a Friday here, so that will play into some of it. And then never mind that on Sunday, they are calling for a pretty wet day on Sunday. So it's a little bit different time of the season. Barber, like to your point, is a much different track than Daytona. Much more technical, much more flowy in that sense. Top speed isn't going to be as big of a difference here as you saw at Daytona. So race condition-wise, I think we could see a couple different races on Saturday than we do on Sunday.
As far as those odds, Cameron Beaubier, just like in the futures, he is the favorite for the race, and a little bit heavier of a favorite. He's minus 122, so you have to lay a price. Now, he did win twice at Barber a season ago. Jake Gagne is the second favorite at plus 441. Josh Herrin just behind him, and just like on the futures board, it's Sean Dillon Kelly in fourth. Fair price to you, Jason, based on the early season testing and the speed for Beaubier, that you have to lay a price if you want to bet him?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty fair price. I mean, Cam's won here a bunch, and look, he's multiple Superbike champion. And going back to my point, he's a single rider team now too. They don't have two riders there. All their focus is going to be on Cameron. Him coming in here again, he'll be definitely the favorite. He went and tested at a track at Podium Club, was fast there, broke the lap record, I believe, there as well, even though some other teams had tested there before he'd ever seen the place. So when you start to look at some of that stuff, this guy here, he's going to be hungry too. It's been a couple years since he's won that championship, so he's going to be hungry and ready to go.
As far as what could happen race 2, this is a really fascinating kind of situational angle, Jason, because if we are to see the rain and it's a 3:10 p.m. local time start on Sunday, we're expecting heavy rain late Sunday morning into the early afternoon. I wonder a guy like a Sean Dillon Kelly, who has been better in the wet in the past on the Suzuki, maybe Richie Escalante, who's further down the odds. Where do you see him? He's almost 60-1. What do you make of those guys' chances? Let's say they're average in race 1, but we do end up getting that rain forecast for race 2.
I think what's going to be interesting, Ben, is if we have a dry race on Saturday, how it could shake up the odds for Sunday's races, because you might get a team like an SDK or Richie Escalante on the M4 Suzuki. They've been working really hard on trying to keep that Suzuki current and making it as good as they possibly can. However, I still think it's probably the third or fourth best bike on the grid. Hopefully they prove me wrong on that. But if they end up 5th, 6th, somewhere like that, 7th on the first day, and then it rains, an SDK and Escalante on those two bikes, very, very good chance that they could do well. And again, you look at that number again, that high number, you got to talk about Hayden Gillum, our Stock 1000 champion from last year, makes the jump to Superbike finally on a Honda. We haven't seen the Honda in our paddock in a long time in the Superbike division. He'd be another guy that you probably get a pretty good number on to sprinkle a little bit of change at him as well.
You're speaking my language, Jason. Anytime we're going deep down the odds board, I love it. And that's just a great kind of betting lesson as well. If you watch the first race and see how those odds change, there can oftentimes be really, really good value then for race number 2. And speaking of good value, let's go to our head-to-head market, because sometimes the sports books don't always value what the sort of bikes are that riders are on this weekend. And in our head-to-heads, the one that stood out to us here, I mean, Bobby Fong and JD Beach, this is basically a 50-50 split, minus 115 each way. But JD Beach, Jason, is on the Stock 1000 this weekend, whereas Bobby Fong, we just talked about him. We really like his chances all season and should be on a very good unit this weekend.
Yeah, this is a situational one that you and I spoke about, and we're going to use that word a lot, I think, this weekend. Bobby Fong on a factory Yamaha Superbike against a Stock 1000 Honda. This one's a pretty easy one to figure out. This is nothing against JD Beach. He's just not fighting the fair fight on similar equipment in this particular case. So yeah, Bobby Fong to me in this one would be a head-to-head favorite just based off of the machinery alone.
And we're all about looking at we're all about trying to give our bettors, right, the best intel, and that is a great situation there. These other head-to-heads, I'm not too interested in betting because you do have a very, very big split here. Cameron Beaubier, a big favorite, minus 263 if you want to lay that price against Jake Gagne. We'll look at our next head-to-head as well, but the one that stood out to us of these three, Bobby Fong, minus the 115. That's my favorite play here as far as the card goes in the first one. All right, we have Superbikes. Also, though, Jason, it is a huge weekend in the Super Sport as the season continues to get underway. And as far as the futures go, the big question that everybody's wondering about, it'll obviously have a big impact on the race this weekend, but how these brand new, the Yamaha YZF R9s, it's a much hyped, ballyhoed new bike. Can't wait to see how it actually looks this weekend. And Matthew Skoltz is the preseason favorite here, looking to defend his title. He's plus 115, and he will be on that bike, one of 9 riders this weekend.
Yeah, look, Matthew threw everything at it last year, and he showed that he wasn't going to be denied. On race weekends where he felt he could win, he was going to do everything he could to run down the guy that you see second on our screen, PJ Jacobsen. So when you look at these numbers, those two guys were head and shoulders above the field last year. I think Ty Scott will have made a jump forward. And to your point, the YZF R9 is a new bike. It's a brand new bike. The team that Skoltz is on, I think, has had that bike for longer than anybody. So him and Blake Davis, you look at Blake Davis at plus 4,015 there, 40-1 on Blake Davis. I mean, that isn't a bad number in the sense that if he shows the pace that he had at the end of the last year and he can get up there and race with these guys, he would be somebody. But look who's fourth there. 50-year-old today, Josh Hayes. It's his birthday today here at Barber Motorsports Park. How are you going to rule out a 4-time Superbike champion and a guy that's decided to come back, race a full season in our Supersport class? There's a lot of intrigue and interest in this class to me, as well as Cam Peterson making the move from a factory Yamaha Superbike last year, running over to the HSBK team to run their V2, their championship-winning, proven in the past bike V2. So there's a lot of intrigue and interest in this class.
I think my sort of strategy here, Jason, is going to be, like, I'm totally buying in here to the hype on the R9. I would look to bet on those for season long. So you think about an 8-1, a 40-1, some of those guys who will be on that specific bike. As far as this weekend, though, for the race, what do you expect? I mean, it's the very first race. We'll see these guys out there. I could see some growing pains, but what's your take on that? Again,
weather included here. We got to start thinking about a little bit of that. I think Matthew Skolch, who I believe was quickest this morning in our first session of the year, he came out. He came out. I saw him go into the pits for an extended amount of time. He went straight to the front as soon as he went back out at a very, very fast lap time. I see why he's at plus 150. The guy that I would look at the most is probably a Cam Peterson. He's won here on Superbike before. He's proven to be very fast here in the wet. Him and Matthew Skolch went head-to-head here 3 years ago in a downpour where both riders ended up crashing in the race. They both ended up on the podium with Cam Peterson winning, as most of our field had actually crashed that day and picked their bikes up. Cam Peterson at plus 1310. I wouldn't shy away from that one.
And you saw P.J. Jacobson, who had podiums in 8 of the first 9 races last year, was second to Skolch in both the Barber races a season ago. He's second in both the futures at just under 2-1, as well as in the race at plus 255. You certainly want to keep your eye on what Jacobson brings to the table this weekend. As we go to our head-to-head, and it's great you brought up Cameron Peterson, who won the first race in the Motorsport motorbike classification last year on the Yamaha, now on the Ducati, and he's a dog here to Josh Hayes. I don't know that I have a good angle, but more than anything, this is an awesome head-to-head. I can't wait to see how it plays out with Hayes the favorite, Jason.
Yeah, this is just a scary one for me. Like, you got Josh Hayes, who's just been there and done that. He's actually worked and coached Cam Peterson, so it's really funny that we have this up on the thing. If I had to go either way, I see value in Cam's number there at almost even money, only because, again, we've got this YZF R9. Josh hasn't had a ton of time on this bike. He was top 10 this morning. Cam went straight to the front on that Ducati on a bike that he's only ridden once. He's only tested it once. This, to me, is too much of a coin flip for me to sprinkle anything on, though.
I'm totally with you. Our next head-to-head, these are the top 2 on the odds board, so I usually stay away whenever you have guys who are at the very, very top. I'd rather just bet them individually if I like an angle, but Skolch about a minus 150 favorite against P.J. Jacobson at plus 110, and we'll show you the final head-to-head. You have options to bet on all these through different odds providers as well. Corey Alexander, and Jake Lewis involved in our final head-to-heads there. I just know, Jason, I'm excited for some best bets. I want to get into these because I feel really good on the Superbike front, especially because it is race 1. We've got an opportunity to get some futures going in the portfolio. I think I'm going to put a little bit on both Josh Herrin, who's just over 4-1 to win the championship and repeat. As much as I'm usually not someone who wants to bank on repeat winners, this is all about market price. I mean, I'm kind of surprised Herrin is not more like 2-1 plus 250. Instead, we're getting over 4-1. That's just really good value to me, and why not Herrin here to go back and repeat?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, doing this show with you, I've learned a lot already, even in the 2 shows that we have done. And this is literally just not about the riders. This is about the numbers that they've been given, and we have to look at that. So to your point, 4-1, Josh Herrin to win the championship, I mean, it's pretty hard to go against that. So I like what you're saying there for sure in the Superbike futures.
As far as other race bets specifically, I'll go Bobby Fong minus 115 over JD Beach in that Superbike matchup. Super Sport, I just feel like there's so much variance and chaos this year. But I like your angle. I mean, Cameron Peterson, too. That at 13-1 seems super intriguing as far as a longer shot price.
Yeah, and I think, too, when you look at the very end of that, when we had Corey Alexander against Jake Lewis, Jake is, again, he's on a brand new bike. So he's gone from the GSXR 750 to the Yamaha YZF R9. Are they going to have that bike up to speed at this particular race? We know the bike's not going to be any worse than the old R6. It's going to be a better motorbike. Just a matter of how much time he has. Where Corey's coming in, he's already been on the bike for a full season. He's coming in healthy. They just did a 3-day test. So when you look at that, the value to me would shift as a favorite to Corey Alexander in that, only because, again, the time that each have had on their motorcycles and their machines and the amount of time to get used to them. Corey's ready to go on a bike he knows and a team he knows.
Sure thing. Well, I appreciate you helped me also with the insight. You're like the conciliary here to getting my betting portfolio going, Jason. So you guys have an awesome weekend out there at the track. I will certainly be watching. And as a reminder, for all these betting discussions we've been having, make sure to check your odds provider. You can go to nxtbets.com/playma. Odds are always subject to change, but I think we've uncovered some really good value here for the first major race weekend of the season in both the Superbike and Supersport classifications. So for Jason Pridmore and our entire crew, I'm Ben Wilson saying so long. This has been the Barber edition of the MotoAmerica Race Line. We will see you next time from Atlanta, Georgia. Enjoy the races this week, and everybody from Barber in Alabama.